This is the Metal Queens podcast. I'm Steve Richards on this episode of the MQP Divine Martyr and the brand new lead vocalist. There she is, Cassandra Chandler, born and raised in Indianapolis, the powerhouse vocalist of the symphonic metal band Divine Martyr. They've been around since 2016. Cassandra's story is a fusion of faith metal, classical roots, and unshakable passion. From singing Sandy Patty duets in church with her mom to belting out Evanescence alone in her room, from headbanging to Ozzy in her dad's car, and to discovering the genre that finally felt like home, symphonic metal. Her journey is as dynamic as her voice. I'm happy to have Cassandra Chandler join me here on the Metal Queens podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So clearly, you grew up surrounded by music. What are your earliest memories of singing or performing?
I think the most earliest memory I have are not me singing, but it was when I was first exposed to the stage in general. I was with my mom when she toured with the Hallelujah Chorus with a lot of different theater acting. It was mainly the mixture of Christmas and the crucifixion as well. So I was in the children's group, so I got used to hearing all the orchestra and vocal warm-ups and got used to the costumes and the getting ready for in the backstage and all that. And then when I was really, really young, I was about 6 years old and I got immersed into it. So I kind of fell in love with it very early on. And then when I was about 9 years old, my mom was singing one day and working on for a compliment for church. And so I came in and I was like, Mom, I think I want to start singing. And so, of course, being 9 years old, your voice is not developed.
Mhm.
So she started me out with something very, very simple and very easy to not stumble upon the words. So it was very basic: verse, bridge, chorus, the end. And um, the earliest memory is when I first stepped on there. Mostly everybody didn't know I could sing, and it was the first time I did with my mom. And getting all the anxiety pent up and like, oh, trying to breathe through it as a as a 9 year old. And I loved it. And my mom kept training me the basics from there because she's um classically trained. And people kept saying how great I did well, and I kept on going along with it and doing little bits and pieces there. And um, then over time, when I got to 14 years old, my mom was doing another kind of a vintage music night, and someone saw me doing it just to help my mom get to know what the words, but the character was for a 16-year-old. So I actually took that spot instead. So that was also a cool memory. That was my full on first time solo piece, and it was in front of I think about 600 people that night. It was quite big and packed, and I loved it. And that's when I knew I was like, this is something I want to do way, way beyond in my years. And um, but then I stopped and got to 16 and onto 18 and discovered metal and fell in love with it instantly because it mixed my classical roots and then also that metal side that I literally have both my parents. My mom is a classical singer into contemporary classical music, and then my dad's the metalhead. So I got all of that mixed up into myself, and those were like the earliest exposures of music and the overall experience of planning out shows and costume design and the music and the warm-ups. I just had it so early on that it came ingrained.
Yeah, you really had a musical contrast in your house. Your mom's favorites, as I mentioned, Sandy Patty. One of my
Hmm.
personal favorites. I grew up in a classical house, Andrea Bocelli. And your
Yes.
dad's favorites, of course, Metallica, Queen, Michael Jackson, to really shape your taste.
Yeah, absolutely. I went through a short period when I was like 11 or 12 where I was just a huge Michael Jackson fan. I got into watching all the documentaries, listening to all the music videos, and back when you had to rent DVDs in the and the CDs at the library. So I was always having tons of those coming in and listening to them, and I loved the music. So whenever they pop on, I do turn up the radio. But as I got older, I didn't know this was before, smartphones and stuff like that. I didn't have access to a computer growing up, so I never knew that he was a fellow Hoosier. So when I found out he was a Hoosier, I was like, but that time I was really into the Michael Jackson, and what hit me with metal was when my dad finally got us Guitar Hero. And that was when we first exposed, me and my brother got exposed to um, metal music and all kinds of classics, like the World Tour one, because he had Ozzy and also Michael Jackson's Beat It on there. And we got into the rest of them. Then they got the Metallica Guitar Hero. So once I first started playing Metallica all the time, I loved the heaviness to it. And I think that's where I got more hit into it when I was in high school playing that and listening to other things on my phone and the symphonic metal elements to it. So it was all yeah, all surrounded at home with the music going on. So that
And
was
be
really fun.
and before high school, when you were singing at
Mhm.
14, you discovered the incredible Amy Lee. And you
Yes.
started singing Evanescence. Amy Lee always comes up here on the Metal Queens podcast as the biggest, hands down influence
hmm
of them all.
Yeah. For me, I think I had a drive where whenever I would hear someone, I wanted to master something. I wanted to get inspiration from what they did. So whenever I would hear Evanescence, I would be like, okay, this seems comfortable in my range. I will try to memorize these songs and just play around with my voice. And this was before I had proper training. And so I fell in love with the lyrics that she did and the music and the heaviness in some songs that she did have, and then also I would listen to Sarah Bareilles, which was for like a calmer type of music. And excuse me, because I didn't know what I was yet, I was still kind of not pushing myself completely because uh I didn't want to hurt myself by accident. So it was that was a big one that I constantly sang all the time. It was Evanescence a lot. Yeah.
Tell me about the moment you discovered symphonic metal. What clicked for you?
The first time I listened was Nightwish, and I got to watch Bye Bye Beautiful for the first time. And I actually listened to all the singers in the wrong order. So I was exposed to Annette first, and then I found the video and I listened to it mainly from Googling, like, okay, is there a mixture of metal and opera vocals, or just is there opera metal? And so Nightwish popped up, and I sat there and listened to it, and I'm like, well, this doesn't sound like opera, but I love the music to it. And then once I started immersing into getting into the band, I noticed about the first singer, Taja, and then that's when I was like, whoa, okay, yeah, opera and metal are both forces of nature. They mix beautifully, and I just stuck to it and listened to it all the time. And then it wasn't till I was in my early 20s I found out that Floor joined, and um that was for the I think their 2013 performance, like her most iconic time that she did, a Ghost Love Score. And that was like, whoa, I love the balance that she brought to Annette, and the con more of the belty clean vocals, and then she could also do classical here and there. So that was like my first full-on exposure to symphonic metal. And then I discovered Exandria, Sirenium, uh, a little bit of Delane. That was another one I heard. Not a whole lot, but I did listen to them a couple times. And then over time, I got more into the Gothic symphonic music, which was Tristania, Sins of Thy Beloved. Um, and then I would say full-on Gothic metal was the Theater of Tragedy, and I loved those more later on. And so that was like my full exposure to the symphonic elements or full-on symphonic metal as well.
What techniques have you found most valuable in balancing operatic power with rock grit?
I would say strengthening transition notes because sometimes when people aren't completely grounded in their middle voice and being able to switch from the head to the chest or you're belting, it can sound like you just bumped a little too hard into switching from the octaves. So when I got into training about 5 years ago, I was given a list by my teacher and he was saying, okay, what are the main things that you want me to teach you? And I explained the subgenre I was doing at the time, and it was a symphonic metal with some older bands that I worked with. And he's like, okay, well, I'll go ahead and round that out for you, and you're not going to even notice, that things are going to form out. Um, and they were just very easy, simple things, and that developed the voice. And he noticed I could jump from my high area and go straight to my chest voice whenever, but my middle voice was my weakest. So when you have your middle voice very, very strong and comfortable, you can step up evenly and switch from different styles and be, because when you're switching into opera, it's more of an opened in the back of the head and the back of the throat, letting it kind of ring out, especially if you're going into the whistle register. Um, that one is more of a thinking of keeping this top of the mouth open, ringing, imagining like it's ringing out through the head.
Wow.
But with the chest, it's almost like mixing a little bit of talking, but it's very um, tricky for my voice type because we're built to constantly be up here. So our vocal cords are actually not as thick as some other women singers can be, where they can just constantly bell all the time. And that's why I always strained that towards anybody who was hiring me because they wanted, a mezzo soprano or a contralto that could belt all the time. Or some were regular sopranos like Flora, where she can just belt and belt and belt all the time. But sopranos can have those really, really high notes, but that's just normally what they don't preferably do. For me, when I got into belting, I can't do it for very long. So for me, I have to automatically switch. So for me, having that strength into a middle voice, it can help me, ease in away from the belting and get it back into the high register and have it, as my teacher would call it, a seamless voice and not sound like you're jumping from like, three steps up and three steps down. So I think having a well-rounded training of every part of your voice makes you super, super strong. And it also helps you build that confidence owning your own voice, knowing that you don't have to sound like everybody else and you don't have to try to compete with other people. Um, Training the entirety of your voice brings out the best of it completely.
No, it's really interesting. I'd never looked at it that way, and that was a great description of it. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, let's fast forward to Divine Martyr, the band you're in now. You are brand new. Cassandra just joined this band in May of this year. These guys back here behind me, these guys are veterans. They're not rookies. What was it like? The band formed in 2016. The band's almost 10 years old. What was it like, Cassandra, coming into this band, and what have you brought to this band?
Um, I knew of them a couple years back, and it was an old bandmate of mine, and he was describing who we possibly could open for that was also symphonic metal. And he kind of mentioned that it was like, oh, it's Christian. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. At that time, I didn't have a full-on walk with God at the time, so it was just mainly secular music, I would say. We just wrote whatever we felt like. And um, that's the only time I ever heard of them. And so once I was looking for something permanent and also looking for someone who really, really wanted my abilities, that's when I saw the ad for a new front woman for them pop up on my Facebook because I was a part of some other groups on Facebook to look for vocals. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, it's them. I remember them. And I said, why not? I'll give it a shot. After training for 5 years, I thought, I'm like, well, I would say that's a good time. Um, so when I first met them, I was a little nervous, but also, explained that I was going to be quite different from what they're used to because it's going to be a lot of, so far, almost a lot of, if not all originals have been having to step up one whole step or two whole steps higher than what the original was. So it's been very fun listening to learning about them at that time and um, watching their old performances and seeing what they're into. And I really loved their energy and their music overall. Because when I first met them, that was when I was completely exposed to their music, and I got to see what they were about and chit-chatted here and there. And then I had two interviews. They wanted to, have that full make sure. And I was still kind of unconfident for myself, I guess, because of the past bands I've been in, they always kicked me out because I was not gritty enough. And so uh, I would always explain to them, like, no, I can belt, is just for a certain amount of time. And also, it's going to sound a little different compared to what you're probably expecting to. And so I had that consistent mindset of they're not going to pick me, they're not going to like me. So, and then they went ahead and video chatted like within an hour after I got home from the interview, and they said, "Well, do you want to come on board?" I'm like, "Absolutely." We got along great, and we're still uh, always talking every day and brainstorming on many different things. And um, I would say the newest thing that I have brought to the band is, I would say, full on symphonic metal influences. I can actually do opera, and I've been in training for opera for about 5 years, and then also with the same amount contemporary because my teacher would go back and forth to make sure I was good at both. And I would say from having the true roots of symphonic metal already in there since I was young, where I would listen to them all the time. I bring those into my writing, and I will ask them every so often. I'll be like, hey, are you wanting Exandria type stuff? Are you wanting something up here like Tarja does? It just depends on what the song needs, and I want to make sure that the song has the exact feeling that they're going for, because that's what I've been struggling with a little bit with writing, because um, I'm so used to kind of toning things down from the previous bands that I've been in. So now I can fully put in like the huge range and writing with the classical elements into there. So I think it's gonna really have that punch of symphonic metal into it instead of what many people have called Divine Martyr is symphonic rock.
Mm.
So it's gonna have more of a heavier edge to it. And when they would chat with me, like, what are your influences? And I said, I love Epica because it has that death metal and symphonic metal elements to it. I love harsh vocals, so I will write those in. I can't personally do them, sadly, and my teacher refrains from teaching me that. He's like, nope, let's keep you safe first.
Mm.
Um, so we have those in the future. So far from listening to the songs that they have written in their archives that never gotten done, they sound a lot more Nightwish and Exandria influenced. So I'm thinking that this album is going to be very um, Exandria forward and Nightwish forward. But I definitely want to sprinkle in some more heavier stuff down the road when we get to it.
Now, you said
So,
you interviewed with them. When you played with them, rehearsed with them for the first time, did it click right away?
um, I think my mind was still on nervousness,
Mhm.
but they, from what they told me, they loved what they heard, and mainly what they told me was what the possibilities that they could do and what they could write, and they could do a lot more thinking, okay, if I want to add in a C6 in here, I can, or an F6, we can. or if we want to have a mixture of some belt songs and some really, you know, classical forward style vocal lines, we can. You can just play around with a little bit of everything. Um, so I think the clicking came after when the last interview was, and we finally just sat down and talked about our goals and where everyone's hearts were at, and saying, hey, we want someone who's going to stay. We want someone who is going to work hard and who loves to write, who loves being in showmanship and stuff like that. And I said, don't worry, I've done it for a while. I never got to use it, but I've done it for so long, where I was with bands in and out with them for 3 years, and I wrote and I formed bands on my own, and they were, um, taken away. So that urge to want to have something of my own and to use all that background that I had, I was like, yeah, I'm ready. Just throw me in. So that was what they were looking for.
So you guys haven't performed live yet, right? Even club
Not
shows or
yet.
anything. All right. So, and you
Yeah.
just mentioned, Cassandra mentioned a few minutes ago, they are working on new music
hmm
right now. So the plan is for an EP or an album, full album?
We're looking at like juggling between an EP and an album. So far, we're, looking at how many songs that we have, and making sure that they are long enough, obviously, to make an album. At first, we were talking about an EP, just going down to like 5 songs. But since we've been writing so much, we might be able to do about 9. So I think we could probably switch it to, an album. And also thinking about a future music video as well, with performing to it with a favorite of ours so far. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun
And the
starting with the
album
writing.
probably won't be out until next year, right?
Actually, if we keep on chugging from what we've seen on our page, we're looking to hopefully at the end of fall this year. So hopefully, if things do well, and prayers that I don't get sick in the middle of that time,
Mm.
for recording. But life happens, fallbacks happen, but no matter what, we'll keep chugging, and I'm gonna keep writing and try to do my best. So,
So you enjoy the songwriting process?
oh yes, I love writing, and most of the time, my best times of writing is when I'm on a big old long road trip and there's nothing but scenery, and I have my headphones and listen
Mm.
to music. It's, I would say, I have to listen to something else in order to get me inspired, or my mind just kind of wanders away. And I'm like, okay, I'm listening to this song. I like this heaviness. Now, what can I make of my own that's inspired by it? The same kind of energy, not copying it, of course, but um, just full on influence, and getting lost in it and sitting there and writing. And sometimes it clicks, and I have a full on piece there that I am happy with. But sometimes it's a little tricky, especially if like there's some songs where um they'll be like, okay, here's the subject, boom. And I'm like, okay, now I got to write something, completely about the subject. And it's a little harder for it to come up organically. So I have to sit there for a couple good weeks to try to find inspiration. Sometimes I'll watch movies, I'll listen to documentaries, or um, road trips, and just get lost into thought and wait for the inspiration to come. And so far, I've been like, I need to get some songs written. I need to get this done, because knowing that we've mentioned that we would like to get this done in fall, uh, I'm like constantly trying to make sure I get stuff written.
Mm.
But then I'm reminding myself, I'm like, I don't want to do something half-baked. I want to make sure it's organic and authentically inspired, and I never want to give out something that's too early or sounds uninspired. So I've been taking my time with these last 2 songs and making sure that they have the right feeling to them, and also thinking about um, the emotions that go into voice. Because if you don't have the emotion and picturing the character, that feeling is not going to come out in the voice. And that's why some songs can literally bring people to tears, or they're like, hey, I did not feel like you were singing your heart out as the lyrics depict at all. And I never want to give that kind of
Mm.
influence unless I'm like not feeling good that day, then, I would sincerely apologize. I'll be like, I'm sorry. But I always want to give the character and the story in the forefront and make sure people feel through the headphones of what the story is about. So,
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of the bands I've had on here recently, they've been doing the singles and releasing singles, not and holding back on the album or the EP for a while. They just let the
mhm,
singles kind of marinate.
mhm.
Is that going to be, it doesn't sound like that's the plan here. If it's going to be late fall, it might be a single or two and then the full album will be out.
Yes, it looks like we want to do at least two singles, release those, and be like, hey, for the actual album, go ahead and come here and purchase here, and then you can listen to the rest of it. Um, I believe that one of them is just going to be a single to listen to, and then the other is going to be hopefully, we don't know yet, but hopefully a music video for.
All right. So singles, music video, album coming
hmm
possibly later this year, late fall, and
hmm
then touring next year.
That's the plan. Yeah.
All right. All right, Cassandra, we're going to wrap up. This is the lightning round with 5 questions for Cassandra Chandler. Your dream band lineup, you and 4 others, if you have four, dead or alive.
Okay. Um, okay. Can disbanded count?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
Okay. Um, early Tristania, with Vivekstein, Nightwish, um, the current band that Diane is a part of, Ex Libris, Diane from Exandria. She went ahead and formed Ex Libris. Love them. And oof, let's see, fourth. Um, that's hard. Uh, Camelot. That would be another one.
All right. First concert you ever went to?
The very first concert I ever went to was Lacuna Coil when they came over at, I think it was Cleveland or Cincinnati. I can't remember. But it was in Ohio, and it was, I believe, in 2019, I think, somewhere around there. It's been a while.
The
They
awesome.
played at the House and Blues, and it was the first time I exposed my husband to a real metal show. And after that, he was hooked. And so he went with me to my second one, and I said, hey, do you want to come? Uh, I'm really wanting to see Epica. And it was when they were coming to Ohio, and we're opening for Sabaton. And he's like, yeah, if they're like
Mhm.
Lacuna Coil, I'm gonna love this.
Yeah, the great.
So he loved the energy. So that was about like the first one I did was Lacuna Coil, and then I saw Epica. Those are my two
The
most
great
favorite concerts I've ever been to.
Christina Scabia, yes. The
hmm
one album that changed your life, what was it?
Ooh, let's see. Um, I would say Anne by Ex Libris. That one is a historical album. It is three songs into one story. Three songs are about Anne Boleyn. The second is about Anastasia Romanoff, and the third is about Anne Frank. So when you hear it, it's got, obviously the history and talking in a first person of what they would have felt like, but having a similar experience to something that Anne Boleyn went through, which was the song Miscarriage that she had. And it was so deep and reminded me of that pain. And so something that changed in me was like how she brought the character to life with emotion and being able to make her voice sound like it was crying and putting in like this is literally what they went through. And that changed me every time I listen to it. It always brings me to tears
Mm.
when I listen to how she portrayed each girl. And the drama. So if anybody wants to listen to it, definitely check it out. It's a beautiful album, and I think they're beautiful tributes to each of these historical figures. Um and if you're a history lover like me, it I absolutely loved it. So,
What is your go-to vocal warm-up ritual? Do you have a ritual, a song you warm up to?
yeah. Not necessarily songs, but if I'm looking to strengthen like a day before, um, it's mainly listening to Laurie Lewis from Therion when they would do I can't remember what year. I think it was 2007. They did the Gothic Festival, and when I would listen to Laurie Lewis hitting up into C6 and D6, going just singing all the songs that they had during that set list helps me open up that whistle register. But I do have a pre-recorded lesson that I have with my teacher for warm up specifically for before um, shows. So now I've had to learn to shorten it because sometimes that would make my voice too tired too early.
Mm,
But yeah, it's definitely tons and tons of room temperature water. That's what sucks about the summer.
yeah.
Can't have any ice water. So constricts the vocal cords. You absolutely cannot have that. And then plus hot tea does not help either. So
Mm.
but water, water, water. And those vocal warm-ups, I would say, um, let's see, he has me do a lot of ahs and ohs and making sure that I stretch them all the way down from the bottom of the range and being able to slide all the way back up without even my break hitting. So it's making sure that you're stretching. It's like a it's like a yoga for the voice. So, yeah.
All right, and the last one is a one-word answer. One word to describe your sound.
Oh, that's very hard to um let's see. I would say I would say passionate
Good one.
because mixing opera to it already sounds so dramatic and full. And also as well the belting aspect of putting emotion into it. So with having the training to be able to really push out the voice of in its full ability, um, and being able to learn how to calm it down at the same time. I would say putting in character and that passion of pushing into that character and really putting into the shoes of the person. Um, I would say that's what I enjoy most because I come from a theater background with my family. So that was very important in what I was taught. So I would say passionate, putting into the character, no matter what the song calls for. So I guess that's the best I can put.
No, that's a great one. Yeah. Last question. Divine Martyr, where did the name come from? I know you're new to the band.
From what they told me, it was about um, unapologetic um, passion for the faith. So when you hear divine martyr, one part of it is to die for one's faith, especially the Christian faith, is um that takes guts. It takes immense guts, especially with what you're threatened with. And it also is a nod to all the martyrs that are, canonized in the church or remembered. And the divine aspect is that it's something so deep in the church itself, and it's something so honorable in Christ's eyes that it's something very, as I mentioned, unapologetic to it. So with the name, it just shows like, hey, we are proud of our faith. We're not going to apologize about it. We're going to be blunt about it and also give that true feeling of if anyone is needing that support, spiritually and also not just spiritually, but we like also writing songs that people can relate to, not just Christian, because we know that the world is filled with non-Christian and also Christian alike, and we want to be able to I know I do. I know I want to appeal to all audiences to feel like they can have a place in our music. And so it comes from like that rootedness of being unapologetic and yourself and willing to die for that is something very powerful. And it's a mixture of feeling like you have a home and also being unapologetically you and also in your faith.
It's Cassandra Chandler, new lead singer for Divine Martyr. Check them out on social. They're all over the social platforms like divine.martyr.official on Instagram, and they've got a website too, divinemartyr.com. You can check for updates on new music coming, the new album coming later this fall, and touring in 2026. Best of luck, Cassandra, with the new album and the tour and the new band that you're with too, Divine Martyr. Thanks for
All right,
joining
thank
me.
you. Thank you so much.
And thanks for watching the Metal Queens podcast. Like it, share it, subscribe to it. I'm Steve Richards.